Hello and welcome to another Bendigo Life, and we're joined this morning by Robin, who is a board member of Centre Victoria and Mallee Lifeline. Welcome, Robin.
Hello, thank you.
You're on a bit of a push at the moment from a number of points of view, I guess, with the organisation. But could we start by just asking you, and I'm like a lot of people, not sure where you fit in terms of, say, people hear about Beyond Blue and all the other various agencies. Just describe where Lifeline sits in that chain of options that are available to people.
Right. Well, as most people are aware, suicide is an enormous problem in Australia and in Victoria as well.
Yeah.
Lifeline is a crisis line. So we deal with people who are considering suicide in its rawest form, I guess, people who want to talk about suicide because perhaps they can't talk about it to anyone in their family. People who are actively considering suicide will ring Lifeline to speak to somebody.
So when you say crisis line, if I was to make a call to Lifeline, what sort of, are you offering advice, or are you just, how would you best describe what you offer people when they do call in?
I think our key thing that we offer is a listening ear, somebody who will listen to you. It is often easier to talk to a stranger about feelings you have. You may not be wanting to stress family members, or your family members might be contributing to your level of anxiety. A lot of people in Australia are lonely. A lot of people suffer mental illness and they don't have anyone to talk to. So calling Lifeline is a friendly voice on the end who is willing to listen.
And listening is so important, particularly in a time of stress or crisis. How is your organisation funded? How is Lifeline funded? And what are the key challenges?
We do receive some government funding, but it accounts for less than half of what we need to keep our operations going. So we rely on local heroes to sponsor us to keep our local service going. For example, last year, Lifeline Centre Victoria and Mallee, based here in Bendigo, answered 22,500 calls for help.
Gee, that's extraordinary.
All with volunteers. And we rely strongly on local support. The reason why we're participating in things like the Big Give is because we are calling out to people in the community, you know, with the line that we've been a lifeline for so many years. Now we're calling on you to be our lifeline, because at the moment we are desperate for funds.
We've got so many people already, like 22,500 in your area alone last year, having a need to ring. Is there enough being done to relieve stress and relieve pressure on people in society generally, and why is that pressure there?
That's probably too big a question for me. I think life is more complicated. There's a lot of research being done on how complex and busy life is. There's a culture of busyness. There's a culture of can't stop.
I reckon
can't
you're so
listen.
right with that. You notice that, look, here we are sitting in Hargrove Street, Bendigo, go around the corner to a coffee shop, as I often do, but everyone's on a mobile phone, everyone's on an iPad, and there's no escape from either work or friends or social. It really is. The pace of life compared to when I was a kid is unbelievable.
Oh, absolutely. And you find that people are thinking and engaging for far longer during the day than they used to. You know, even children, they go home from school and they're still on their mobile phones, their friends are still texting them. You know, there's this culture of busyness. So there's a lot of work being done around things like mindfulness and being more aware of stress. There's more, you know, counsellors in school and things like that.
Yeah.
But I certainly think a lot of it is life is a lot more complex. And loneliness. I really believe loneliness is a huge contributor.
Yeah. Most people, I think, it would be fair for me to say that most people would agree, they'd be shocked to think the government wasn't throwing money at an organisation like Lifeline. That not being the case, and as you've said, you know, accounts for less than half. With your Big Give, explain how that works and what you're hoping to achieve with that.
Well, what the Big Give does is it is encouraging local people to give locally, to support local causes. And it's a day, the 1st of September is the Big Give Day, I guess we'd call it.
Yeah.
But what we're encouraging is people to donate in the month before that, to contribute to local causes, to be, you know, local heroes, to support local charities. So there's a number of organisations participating. Lifeline Central Victoria and Mallee is one of them, where we're calling on local people to help us retain a local resource that benefits so many people. We also would like to expand Central Victoria and Mallee because our region's so big. We'd like to expand our Lifeline services into Mildura. But at the moment, with less than half of the funding necessary for our ongoing survival, the prospect of being able to expand into areas with high need is undoable unless we get some support.
Yeah.
So the Big Give is an avenue we thought where we could gain profile to tell people what we do so that people understand our funding. I think we're in a difficult position because we're a local organisation, like most lifelines are, with a national name. People think, well, they're government funded,
Yes,
they're a national
as I do,
organisation.
yeah.
It's a common thought, when really what we are is a local business who provides services far widely. But we need local funding to survive.
Well, you've already said that last year your people handled 22,000 calls for help. How many people are we talking about on the ground for Lifeline? How many people are fielding calls and acting as volunteers?
We've got a small core of volunteers. We usually have a group of volunteers in the region of around 50 volunteers, and we work on a national roster so that there is always somebody available and more people available at peak times.
Yeah.
But usually in our office there's between 1 or 3 of us.
So Robin, with the volunteers and calling for volunteers, most people would be like me. They think, well, I don't have a clue how to help people. They're more likely to be on the calling end rather than the receiving end. But given that that's the case, I assume there's a level of training supplied, and then you have volunteer nights as well, and you've got one coming up soon. Yes,
we have a couple of months of training. The training's usually one night a week for a few months, with some online training as well, but also facilitated evenings where you practice the skills and things with members of the Lifeline Central Victoria and Mallee team. Our volunteer night is next Tuesday at the Latrobe Visual Arts Centre on View Street. I think that starts at 6 p.m, and that's an information night about what being a volunteer at Lifeline involves, what we ask you to provide and what we can offer you. It is invaluable training. It is invaluable communications training. It's something that I think everyone should do, because it just helps you to communicate so much better. Yeah. Most of us aren't great listeners. Most of us listen for long enough. My kids are telling me that all the time. Well, most of us listen long enough to try and come up with a solution. We're not good at just listening because some people's problems aren't solvable and they just want to talk them through. It's more a case of time. Yeah, and learning to listen, I think, is a great skill. All right, well, you've got the Big Give coming up, and in terms of boots on ground, how do people actively then steer funding to you, using that as the trigger? But alternatively, do they go to a website or something for people who say, I'd just like to help Lifeline, all right, Big Give's happening, but at some stage through the year, I would just like to help Lifeline? Yes, we certainly have a Lifeline Central Victoria and Mallee website, which if you type Lifeline Central Victoria and Mallee into any search engine, you'll come to our website and it has information on how to donate. We've got a lot of posters around for the Big Give. And as it says there, if you want to donate to us, the website is chuffed.org, making Bendigo safe. But if you type the Big Give Bendigo into it, you would be able to find it easily as well, rather than having to remember or write down an address. And there's a number of ways to give. We've got a number of levels of funding and a bit of information to tell people what they can achieve with the amount of money they donate.
Yeah.
And they can be small donations such as stocking the volunteers' cupboard with tea and coffee, or up to, you know, $2,000 to fund a Lifeline counsellor being trained, buying a headset for Lifeline
So many
volunteers
so many
to
aspects,
use.
yeah.
So many aspects.
I think it's fair to say, Robin, certainly when you get my vintage, and you see more and more people affected in one way or another by some form of crisis or stress in their lives, that I don't think anyone would argue that you're doing an incredible job. The organisation is fantastic, and certainly we'll do everything we can to support you in terms of raising awareness and funding, and hopefully steer people to that website. But good luck for the Big Give. Good luck with ongoing funding, particularly from the Central Victoria and Mallee area. And thanks so much for taking the time to come and tell us about it today.
It's my absolute pleasure, Dennis. Thank you very much for the opportunity to show Bendigo what a great organisation we are. Thank you.
All right, Robin, thank you. And thank you for joining us again today. We'll see you again next week.